News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
It's now 5:05 at News Talk KVNU, and I'm Will Feelright with a look at our local headlines here at the beginning of Hour 2 KVNU's For the People show. Well, the judge has ruled that the public and media will be able to attend the preliminary hearings for the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. Now, defense attorneys for 23-year-old Tyler Robinson had asked to close the upcoming July proceedings, arguing that releasing new evidence could taint a future jury pool. However, Judge Tony Graff ruled this morning that the defense had failed to prove potential jurors would be prejudiced. Now, the judge also noted that much of the state's evidence is already public, including DNA that was found on the murder weapon and an alleged confession note. Now, prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for the September shooting on the Utah Valley University campus. Now, in a separate ruling, the judge did grant a defense request for a June 12th evidentiary hearing. That hearing will determine whether state prosecutors violated a pretrial gag order by giving unauthorized interviews to the media. Well, in other news, a Park City man used his firearm training to halt a violent suspect who had broke into his apartment while fleeing from police. Now, deputies were initially called to a domestic dispute involving a man who was threatening people with scissors. Now, the suspect fled from law enforcement, broke into a nearby apartment, then climbed across a balcony and entered the home of resident John Santee. Now, Santee was inside when he said he heard his roommate screaming. After confronting the intruder in his kitchen, Santee drew and cocked his handgun, ordering the suspect to the ground. Now, Santee held the man at gunpoint until deputies knocked on his door. Moments later, authorities say that the suspect had already been hit with 3 less lethal beanbag rounds before entering the apartment. The man is now being held in the Summit County Jail. And finally, a South Weber electrical trade instructor has been arrested for allegedly abusing a 17-year-old student at a local Job Corps facility. 59-year-old J. Michael Redcliffe Crank is facing charges of second and third degree felony forcible sexual abuse. Now, according to court documents, the teenage victim had told Davis County Sheriff's deputies that Crank would frequently bring her coffee and insisted on a proper hug, touching her inappropriately under her clothing in his office closet. Now, deputies noted that additional charges are possible as the investigation continues due to Crank's regular access to other young students. Well, it's been a beautiful afternoon as temperatures have been in the mid-70s today, and it looks like the rest of the week we're going to see temps in the 80s. Starting tomorrow when we hit about 82 for our high, then mid-80s coming for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and possibly 90s for next Saturday. And weather this hour brought to you by the Lawn Doctor. Here's what you'll notice with Lawn Doctor's two-step soil enrichment. 1, you'll have improved water retention, reduced compaction, and stimulated root growth, and also an increase in fertilizer and nutrient uptake, giving you a greener and healthier lawn. It's the Lawn Doctor. Call them today at 753-LAWN or go to lawndoctor.com. I'll have another check of local news coming up at the bottom of the hour as KVNU News Time is now 5:08, and more of KVNU's For the People show with Jason Williams is next.
Mild winter? Oh, yeah. Your weeds noticed, too. Now they're popping up everywhere. Landscape beds, rock, even your driveway. Oh. Good news? Logan Extermination has you covered with their Kills-All service. Starting at just $75 for 1,500 square feet or less, they'll take care of those unwanted weeds fast. Clean it up before it all takes over. Call Logan Extermination today at 435-752-8450. That's 435-752-8450. Online at loganextermination.net, a division of Anderson Seed and Garden.
News and current events. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Look, let's clear something up. IV therapy, hormones, peptides, ozone, this isn't about luxury wellness. It's about function. This is Dr. Josh Red with Red River Health and Wellness, and we're expanding our services to include these advanced therapies that support how your body actually works. Low energy, inflammation, hormones, recovery, immune health. These treatments are used intentionally with medical oversight and integrated into our existing approach to whole body care. If you're tired of quick fixes and vague answers, this is something different. This is about supporting your health at a deeper level so you can feel better, think clear, and live stronger. Red River Health and Wellness, because your health deserves more than guesswork. Learn more or schedule a consultation at redriverhealthandwellness.com.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
Tuesday edition, Clay and Buck. It is primary day in California. Big decisions for Los Angeles mayor voters. Top two in L.A. and California will advance regardless of party. We will break it all down for you. Andrew Giuliani in charge of running the World Cup in the United States. He will be with us as well. All that and more. Tuesday edition, you won't want to miss it on Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. I promise I've got all the AI data center commentary and headlines out of my system for now, but there'll be more tomorrow, it seems like. Moving on. If you want to catch up on all that, statement from Box Elder County resident or officials, the letter sent to Kevin O'Leary from the Senate President today, who's had a change of heart, seen the light on all of this after signing off on it for 4 months. All of that I've linked to on our Facebook page and Instagram account if you'd like to find the links there. So, moving on. I don't know if this is an easier story to talk about, but we mentioned here on the show and in the news here on KVNU over the last couple of weeks, executive orders declaring emergencies here in Utah by Governor Cox. One for drought, makes sense, and one for. By the way, if you want an idea of how much concern there is over water levels or lack of water coming in to replenish water already being used from our reservoirs, I don't remember Hiram City issuing water restrictions in even those really bad drought years of 2021-22. That is because Hiram enjoys a pretty cushy spot when it comes to water availability. It's unique to Hiram. And so because of that, the city has not had to impose any official water restrictions. But this year, I was told by Hiram residents that they've been contacted by the city 2 weeks ago, actually, saying, keep it under control. Things are looking okay. We're in a better position than a lot of other cities in northern Utah are, but it is extremely dry out there already, has been for a while. And if you don't want us to have to actually step in and impose some more strict water restrictions on secondary water use, keep it in check. And just reminding people that, this time of year, now it is starting to heat up. So if you're transitioning to a couple of times a week now of watering your lawn and your trees and your shrubs, that would make sense. But if you were doing it before last week, you were wasting water. And I don't say that to point the finger at anyone and say you're bad, but to remind people that, and USU has some great, at their USU Extension website, there's some great information on this. You can actually, for free, it does take some scheduling because they're limited in time and availability, but for free, they will come out and actually do a kind of an audit of your sprinkler system, let you know based on what you have in your yard, the types of trees and plants and your type of system, when the best time to water would be. And you can save so much water. I actually paid a professional to do this a while ago. And before I knew there was a free service through USU, which I found out through this show, unfortunately, just after I'd done this. But, certain areas of your yard can be watered, for 30 minutes once a week. So you can set those stations to that. Other areas might need an hour twice a week in the hot months. But you can control all of that and water efficiently and smartly and save a lot of water use. But the easiest way to do it without any additional steps taken by you is just remember that you don't need to be watering every night. You know who you are. I got a couple of neighbors whose systems go off for 15 minutes every night. least efficient way to use water to keep your lawn green, honestly, and really not that great for your lawn. So to ask Mark Anderson, he'll tell you. Drive down there right now, ask him, and call me out here and tell me if I'm wrong. No, this is an opportunity, I think, for all of us to think more about it. So I say that just in perspective. In addition to the executive order on drought, the governor also issued an executive order regarding, now he didn't use these words, but this is what Ben Scow at Utah State University's Extension, he's a horticulturist though, is potential statewide fruit famine this year. This is entirely due to the really warm weather that started roughly in February, and then along come these, it was like 2 nights. That's all it took, but 2 nights in late April. We got down into the mid-20s after a few weeks of things being in mid-30s at the lowest overnight. So you had a lot of fruit trees budding out all across northern Utah and southern Utah, and then a couple of nights of critically low freezing temperatures. You know, if it drops down to 31, 30 below freezing, but, you know, they'll be okay. But when you're dropping down to 22 degrees at midnight and then it's going to sit there until 8 in the morning, yeah, those fruit trees struggle. And so results of this, Scow, a horticulturist at Utah State University's Extension, says this looks like widespread crop loss for many growers and even homeowners. You can read his report at cachevalleydaily.com. He's written this up to make it convenient, but it is known as a fruit famine. And he said those temperatures drop low enough to kill a lot of blossoms and newly setting fruit. And that fruit famine will probably be in play in more areas here in Utah than we think. We grow a lot here still. Now, that doesn't mean fruit's going to be impossible to find. But, you know, those cheaper options, those fruit stands and farmers markets, might see a smaller selection there. And then you also might see, now don't go out and hoard it because you buy too much fruit, you're just not going to eat it. It's going to rot and you'll waste it. But we might see actually, you know, a lot of those, the fruit disappearing from those shelves on local stands and things like that far sooner this year. So fingers crossed the same thing doesn't happen to the fall harvest. And we're not seeing a squash shortage or anything like that, but unlikely. This was, I mean, these late spring frosts this year, it's not unusual for us to see freezing temperatures in April, even March, even May in Utah, but it had been so warm for so long, it really just did a number on a lot of the fruit tree populations out there. So, Scow says that the best advice he can give if your fruit trees got zapped, he says there are some things you can do. Proper watering, obviously, fertilization on a regular basis, pest monitoring, those basic things. But he said for the health of your tree overall, but especially in a year in which they've been, because it is not only do you see less fruit from a tree that's been hit by an early frost, it actually does kind of shock the tree's system and they can die, Scow said. So he said you want to actually reduce nitrogen fertilizer, and you can reduce watering slightly. Water enough so the trees are not drought stressed, but where they're not going to be producing fruit, you can water less. And be sure to keep an eye out for regular pests like codling moth on apples, he says, and pears and things like that. He said you might not need to spray for them this year because of the lack of fruit, but still keep an eye out. And then he said stone fruits, peaches, apricots, cherries, plums, still treat those. If you treat for twig borer or have had to, he said even if they don't have fruit, that borer still shows up as the weather warms. So, and then he said, care for your fruit trees throughout the season in these ways to improve production next year. But remember, just because they're not producing fruit this year due to those frosts doesn't mean they don't need some special care. But again, you can reduce some of your water usage and save a bit on dropping back your nitrogen fertilizer applications One of the reasons for that, Scow explains, that when they're not producing fruit, if you're using nitrogen fertilizer still, you get excessive vegetative growth. So you're going to see a lot of tree growth you're just going to have to prune back. It's not going to do a thing to improve your harvest next year. So some great stuff. USU Extension has mountains of advice and even some great descriptions of how they do some of the research they do at extension.usu.edu. And again, you can read Scow's words on the fruit famine at cachevalleydaily.com. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
At Adams Wealth Advisors, they believe that successful wealth management is all about planning. And whether you've done a lot of planning or a little, Adams Wealth Advisors is here to help. If you're transitioning a business, searching for the most up-to-date tax strategies, need help managing investments, or need help with estate planning, Adams Wealth Advisors has your back. Visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com for more information or to schedule an appointment.
Happy Father's Day from Birch Creek Golf Course. For Dad this Father's Day, visit birchcreekgolf.com and view our online pro shop where you will find our Father's Day deals. Punch passes are on sale, or get Dad a golf lesson, range pass, or gift certificate. So for Dad this Father's Day, choose Birch Creek and visit our online pro shop. And happy Father's Day, Dad, from your friends at Birch Creek in Smithfield.
As America celebrates its 250th birthday, the Cache Valley Media Group asks, why do you love America? We want to hear from you. Call in and record a short message sharing what America means to you, your family, your freedom, or your favorite traditions. We'll be playing select messages on the air all summer long. Join the fun and get complete instructions at cachevalleydaily.com today. And happy 250th birthday, America.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News, a preview of the gubernatorial primary in California where candidates are vying to succeed Gavin Newsom in a race that's been full of drama. Also, the U.S. has been without a Surgeon General now for about a year and a half. Does the country really need a top doctor at the government? And how the rising cost of pet care is hurting adoptions of cats and dogs. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Coming up, pigeon livers might be something that allows us to create internal compasses in human beings, like an injection that temporarily gives you the ability to gut instinct your way around. I'm not kidding. And this is something they say they've already got people signed up for the trials for. So we'll talk about it in a little bit. That is some recent research that was published in a study that caught my attention, but there are some actual real-world applications for this, including one I hadn't thought of, which is pilots. Imagine a pilot getting an injection that allows him to sense direction and even his distance from the surface of the earth as a gut instinct after training, of course, and fly a plane. Pretty cool stuff. So a couple more stories that caught my eye over the weekend, and throw this out as well, just kind of confirmed with the candidates. But we're going to be speaking to county attorney candidates this week. Then we'll get back to, for those who've asked, the congressional candidates. We'll speak with Congressman Blake Moore and Republican challenger in this Republican primary playing out until June 23rd. State lawmaker outgoing at this point, Carrie Ann Lisenby. So we'll get back to them one more time each. We'll speak with the county attorney candidates. But I'm throwing this out now. If you have a question that you would like, the county attorney candidates, this is an interesting race to me because it's a position that, I mean, honestly, if pressed, I would think most people couldn't tell you exactly, other than prosecuting, large or crimes that make enough headlines, we hear about them, They probably couldn't describe. I couldn't describe exactly what goes into being county attorney, but it's a job that is super important. Now, I've only learned that through this show and having a chance to speak with, on a regular basis, the county attorney, whoever is in that position at the time, but also to kind of see some of the decisions that were made by the county council, in which before they made the decision, they had to go to the county attorney and say, help us understand what our options here are, what our legal authorities are, things like that. It's a really, really complex position that's super important, especially as we continue to grow. And I'm surprised, because I'm going to ask the candidates a question about this, but I'm sort of surprised that the issue of state and county and even city use of eminent domain as we continue to grow hasn't come up, at least that I've heard. It hasn't come up during any of the debates. It hasn't come up during any of the opportunities for candidates to speak with members of the public that I've heard of. Maybe it has and I've missed it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's something I want to talk to the candidates about. Not that either of them have proposed anything that should have anyone out there panicking about the use of eminent domain. But we have seen along the Wasatch Front, in Salt Lake County, in Utah County, down in the St. George area, as populations have grown, as the city's demands on the city for everything from roads to public transportation to sewer and water systems and more, we have seen, as cities grow, an increased use of employing eminent domain to make land available for critical infrastructure and public service use. Now, it's still extremely infrequent. So again, no reason to panic. But as population grows, you do see an increase of it popping up. And so I want to talk to the county attorneys about how they feel about that use, what they might advise the county to do or not do in a situation where it was coming up. So that's one of the questions I'm going to ask the county attorney candidates tomorrow. But I want to know what, and over the week, I should say, this won't all happen in one day. We're still nailing down the schedules. But starting tomorrow, we'll start speaking with the candidates. I want to know what you want me to ask them. You're always welcome to call in when we have a guest here on the show, 753-5868. You do have to be clever with your timing, because I can't answer the phone and talk at the same time, obviously. But I do like the idea of, this race becoming something where everybody gets a chance to really, if you have a burning question about the future of Cache Valley, and you've made the connections, as I recently have, between the county attorney's office and growth and some of the legal challenges that I think are going to present themselves more and more often, not just crime, which is obviously going to be a part of it. The nature of crime in Cache Valley is going to change as we grow. That's a given. You don't have to be a sociologist or even have taken a sociology class to know that as population grows, crime changes. Now, population growth doesn't necessarily mean that crime increases. It can, and it has, but it's also not in some areas. And that depends on a lot of different factors that are not something the county attorney's office ever controls. That has a lot to do with economic availability of jobs, economic situation of a certain area. The poorer an area, the more of an increase in crime you're going to see as populations increase, that kind of thing. County attorney doesn't get to decide things like that, right? But the county attorney can set policy and agenda for dealing with, anticipated types of crime. So as populations grow, we might see an increase in certain violent crimes that we haven't normally seen here in Cache Valley. Not in frequency, but in severity. I'm not saying we will, but we might. We might see an increase in car theft. That's something that, as populations grew along the Wasatch Front, that's something almost every city police department along the Wasatch Front has been dealing with more and more. Car thefts and general property theft from yards and things like that. So I'm curious to hear what the candidates think about how we should plan for that eventuality. So those are some of the questions I'm going to ask as we speak to the county attorney candidates here this week over the next couple of days. But again, I want to know what you would ask. What types of questions, what concerns do you have going forward? If you have questions, email them in, kvnuftp@gmail.com before tomorrow afternoon, or give us a call. And we'll be back right after the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Late spring frosts this year have severely damaged fruit production across Utah, and that's leading agricultural experts to warn of a statewide fruit famine. Now, plunging temperatures struck just as blossoms and young fruit were developing on trees, and that's wiped out crops for many commercial growers and homeowners. Now, Ben Scow, a horticulturist with Utah State University Extension, says the freezing weather arrived at a critical time, meaning that the state will see very little locally grown fruit this season. Now, despite the widespread crop loss, Scow urges tree owners to still maintain their normal care routines to ensure a healthy harvest next year. He recommends continuing proper watering and fertilization, while also spraying for codling moth in apples and pears likely is unnecessary without fruit this year. Experts remind growers, though, that stone fruits like peaches and cherries should still be treated for peach twig borers and also to maintain long-term tree health. In other news, 2 men were sentenced for their roles in the March 2024 robbery and murder of 27-year-old Alexia Franco. Now, Franco was shot inside a Jeep near his home during a setup to purchase a firearm. Now, his body was later found in a remote part of Utah County. Last week, a 3rd District Court judge sentenced 19-year-old Rohan Sharoon to consecutive terms of 1 to 15 years for manslaughter and 5 years to life for aggravated robbery. Now, meanwhile, 20-year-old Pedro Alexis Romero Bustos received a suspended prison sentence for aggravated robbery and obstruction of justice, resulting instead in 4 years probation. Now, Franco's stepmother expressed disappointment over the plea deal, stating that both men are responsible for his death. Meanwhile, the shooter, who was just 15 at the time, was previously sentenced to maximum juvenile detention until they turned 25. And finally, a St. George woman has been arrested after allegedly stealing several gold coins from her roommate and selling them for more than $30,000. Now, 50-year-old Kimberly Lynn Vanderlinden faces second-degree felony theft charges. Authorities say that she opened her roommate's locked desk and stole 7 gold coins and also took 4 valuable sentimental rings from a vanity. Now, when confronted by her roommates who discovered the missing rings in her room, Vanderlinden claimed that she could not remember taking anything because she has a sleepwalking issue. However, investigators noted that it was highly unlikely that she would selectively target the high-value items while asleep. Now, security footage also caught Vanderlinden selling the coins at a local fine metals shop over 2 separate days. Now, furthermore, a former long-term roommate refuted her defense, telling police that they had never witnessed Vanderlinden sleepwalking. Well, we've got clear skies this evening as temperatures tonight going to drop into the mid-40s after we were in the mid-70s today. 80s are going to be headed our way for the rest of the week, as we'll be around 82 for tomorrow's high, then mid-80s for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and low 90s coming for Saturday. And it's the Allies Law Firm that brings you our weather here at the bottom of the hour. You know, many of their estate planning, probate, and divorce services are all offered with transparent flat fees, so you'll know what to expect from the beginning. It's the Allies Law Firm, where when it matters most, you deserve the Allies Law Firm. And I'm Will Feelright with your Monday afternoon headlines.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. He couldn't care less if Iran resumes talks with the U.S. after cutting them off earlier today. This is President Trump also saying that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu told him on the phone that Israel will not send troops into Beirut or attack Lebanon. And Trump also saying Hezbollah told him they'll stop attacks on Israel. Gasoline prices were coming down recently after reports of progress in U.S.-Iran negotiations. Patrick DeHaan, gas buddy analyst, said those dips could be short-lived.
It's still not impossible that later this summer, even ahead of July 4, that we could see the national average pressing $5 a gallon.
The Justice Department says it will abide by a federal judge's temporary freezing of the Trump administration's special $1.8 billion fund aimed at paying people claiming they were wronged by the Biden administration. State of Florida suing OpenAI, claiming the company knowingly released and aggressively marketed ChatGPT while concealing serious risks. This is ABC News.
Hello, Cache Valley. It's Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance, and we're changing our name to Alara Group. We're still your local hometown team, but now with even more options. By teaming up with one of the nation's top insurance firms, we can bring you more carriers, better value, while keeping the small town personal service you count on. Come see us in North Logan. Same face, same place. Or call 435-752-0101.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
Get your cooling fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your AC fixed, call Gary Riggs. If you're having cooling problems, we're here to get them fixed. Just pick up the phone and call Gary Riggs. 435-512-6633. We'll come to you. Our service fee is low, just $25. We repair all brands and have certified installers. Get your cooling fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your AC fixed, call Gary Riggs.
Photographers, take your skills to the next level with Bank of Utah's My Utah Photo Contest. Submit up to 3 original color photos of what Utah is to you. First place wins $500 and their photo featured on a billboard and Bank of Utah's annual calendar. Cash awards and calendar features will also go to 2nd and 3rd place and most votes. Show us what Utah is to you. Go to bankofutah.com/MyUtahContest to enter. That's bankofutah.com/MyUtahContest. Bank of Utah. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. This was part of me wants to say, man, if they screw this up. Another part of me calms down and thinks, this is just kind of the way things go. The defense and prosecution, parry back and forth, challenging each other ahead of a trial. But it does make me a little nervous just because, in one sense, in a case this high profile and this really scary, the political assassination of conservative activist and commentator Charlie Kirk here in Utah last year, the prospect of this trial, I feel like this should be not easy because a person's life is on the line again, and you want justice to be served, and you want a fair trial, and you want everything on the up and up, even though there's a lot of emotion behind this, even if, again, you weren't a fan of Charlie Kirk, which I wasn't really. My biggest issue, I've said this a million times, my biggest issue with Charlie Kirk is that he called himself a debater, and as an old school, trained in Lincoln Douglas debate stan, as the kids say, what he did wasn't debate. That was my only issue with him, is that it wasn't debate, and don't call it that. But he was assassinated for having opinions someone disagreed with. Everybody should want to see a very high profile and swift yet fair justice in a situation like that. And this, though no trial with this much publicity, with this much awareness in the general public globally, a political assassination is going to get attention, right? It's going to be difficult. I understand that, but some of these stories just make me nervous because the fallout from a mistrial would be just a second tragic end to what is already a tragic situation. Anyway, so I get a little worked up when I see these headlines. The one today, and again, I'm not pointing any fingers here. I understand these are complicated, and I understand this is part of the defense's job to make things as difficult as possible on behalf of their client heading into a trial within, reason. And the judge is there to decide whether they are within reason. But a judge apparently felt the defense had a point enough today to rule on, well, there were two rulings this morning. Fourth Circuit Judge Tony Graff, and remember, we're still heading into the actual trial. This is all the work that goes in on behalf of the accused and the alleged victim. And in this case, the state is representing the victim, Charlie Kirk, and the defense, I forget their names, have been hired to do a job, and they're doing the job. And we should, by the way, I've heard some people say, why don't they just, everyone knows he did this, he kind of confessed to it, why don't they just do what needs to be done? Well, we have a justice system in this country for a reason, and it makes me equally as nervous to think that we're all going to say under certain circumstances we're just going to throw all those rules out and just slip back temporarily to vigilante justice and mob rule. No, we shouldn't do that. So as frustrating as this is, it's the process, and it's the best one you'll probably get, though imperfect. But so what happened today? Fourth Circuit Judge Tony Graff ruled two different rulings this morning. He ruled on a upcoming preliminary hearing that has been scheduled, where the defense had said, for their client's benefit, this should not be a public event because it's so high profile. Their argument throughout has been that this is so high profile, every bit of publicity this trial gets is going to make it harder and harder and even impossible, they're arguing, for a jury to remain impartial. And so what happens then is you're constantly swapping jurors out, restarting parts of the trial, and it could go on for years. And this has happened in capital cases before. So they've got a point. That was one of their arguments. The judge disagreed. The judge said that the preliminary hearing will remain open to the public. That has been scheduled for, I believe, there's an evidentiary hearing that's been set for June 12th. And then I believe, and that's when the judge decides if both sides, have been fair with each other, presented all the evidence to each other, and also if they have enough evidence to move ahead with the trial in the first place. And then the preliminary hearing is set to begin. It's expected to be multiple days, but it's set to begin on July 6th. So the ruling today was that preliminary hearing should remain open to the public. The second ruling was a separate evidentiary hearing that has been set up now. Again, this will also happen on June 12th, along with the original evidentiary hearing. And this is based on a claim from the defense, the attorneys representing alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, alleged assassin, I guess would be a better way to put it, Tyler Robinson. His attorneys have argued that the prosecution has violated a judge's previous order, a gag order. So the judge, or a previous judge, not Graff, but a previous judge involved with this had issued very early on a gag order saying, so that you don't pollute, they say, the jury pool, so that you make it possible for the jury to do their job, you stay away from interviews in the media. So no prosecuting attorneys or defense attorneys going out and doing interviews, no scheduling of your client speaking on, this media outlet or that media outlet. Well, the defense is arguing that the prosecution, specifically Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray and Utah County Deputy Attorney Chris Ballard, have violated that gag order put in place months ago by the courts by making comments and multiple statements, the defense argues, to everyone, Fox News, USA Today, TMZ. Graff this morning said that the defense, quote, made a sufficient preliminary showing under Utah law to warrant further proceedings, but so far does not constitute a finding of contempt. So that's the judge basically saying, I don't feel that these multiple statements and comments that have been sent or even made in person to requests for information from Fox News, USA Today, and TMZ. The judge is saying, I don't feel that they've outright violated the gag order and are therefore, considered in contempt of court. But he felt that there was sufficient showing on the defense's part to warrant a review. And so that has been scheduled again for June 12th. And both parties on June 12th will have 90 minutes to make their case in this sort of mini trial just before the judge. And again, this is a response from the judge to a request from the defense for a decision from an earlier court to bar the public from all portions of upcoming preliminary hearings. The judge again said no. That preliminary hearing that starts July 6th will be open to the public. And again, the argument from the defense here is that public and press access will create an unfair prejudice. They're doing their job for their client. And that'll complicate the process of building an unbiased jury. The judge didn't necessarily agree with that. He said they had a point and there is concern about that, but he didn't agree that barring the public from the event was going to change any of that difficulty. And I kind of agree with him there. He said in his statement this morning, the judge said the public and the media enjoy a presumptive right to access to court proceedings, including preliminary hearings. And a party seeking to close a preliminary hearing must show that adverse publicity is directly traceable to the open hearing process as a realistic likelihood of a prejudice to a fair trial to overcome this presentation. The party seeking closure must also show there are no less restrictive alternative means to ensure the integrity and impartiality of the jury. So the judge there is basically saying, look, everyone knows the story here. You're going to be working with the jury pool you're going to be working with one way or another, and having the public here for their preliminary hearing on starting July 6th is not going to change that situation. Second ruling, again, saying he doesn't feel that the prosecution, as the defense has argued, is in contempt of court in violating a gag order by speaking to the press. But he said that the defense had supplied enough information to make him think they needed to schedule a second evidentiary hearing, which will also take place on June 12th, to review that, basically, whether there was actual contempt of the court on the part of the prosecution for speaking to Fox News and TMZ and USA Today and some others. It makes you nervous. Everyone should want this trial to play out, be fair, and follow the rules of the justice system. Every time I see a story like this, I think, oh man, if this ends in a hung jury or a mistrial or because the prosecution messed up, I don't think that's going to happen. Again, I think this is just part of the process and the defense doing its job, and Hopefully things just proceed as planned. There's already enough tension in this country. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People. Oh, by the way, if you'd like to read more on this in the statements from the courts this morning on these two rulings, I've linked to them both on our Facebook page, courtesy of the Salt Lake Tribune. And we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Do you have a fireplace or stove that isn't working right? Why wait until next winter to get it fixed? Get ahead of the game and get your fireplace or stove serviced now by Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They service everything from Quadra-Fire pellet stoves to heat and glow fireplaces. Get a 20% discount on your next service and labor when you mention this ad. Call 752-7272 or go to advancedfireplaceandstove.com. Advanced Fireplace and Stove, where comfort is their business.
As America celebrates its 250th birthday, the Cache Valley Media Group asks, why do you love America? We want to hear from you. Call in and record a short message sharing what America means to you, your family, your freedom, or your favorite traditions. We'll be playing select messages on the air all summer long. Join the fun and get complete instructions at CacheValleyDaily.com today. And happy 250th birthday, America.
I'm married with 2 kids.
I'm a veteran. I own my own business.
I'm a retired school teacher. And
I've had thoughts of suicide.
But, thankfully,
my granddaughter made a point of checking in on me.
Spencer noticed when I was distancing myself.
One of my buddies, he was worried about me.
Having someone
when I wasn't myself.
When I need it most.
Help me live on.
Live on.
Live on.
Connection can prevent suicide. Learn more at liveonutah.org.
Combat medic Alan Babin was critically injured in Iraq when he rushed to help an injured soldier. Now he will require care for the rest of his life. Paralyzed Veterans of America is here helping veterans get all the benefits they've earned. To help Paralyzed Veterans of America, visit pva.org.
My husband had a gun. Him and his friends would go shooting. When he stored the gun, he didn't know. In a million years, we never thought that Emily could. There's a hole in our family that can never, ever be filled.
65 Americans a day die by gun suicide. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Wrapping up today's show with a bit of good news and then something a little more lighthearted to send you into your evening, your moment of zen. To wrap things up today, the bad news first. Gas prices likely climbing back up. They started to dip down a little bit here in Utah. I think it's down about 20 cents a gallon from a few weeks ago. Headed back up. Oil futures Monday through the roof again, following a breakdown of negotiations in the Middle East. The president today saying in a statement that he found the negotiations boring and doesn't care if they continue. This obviously panicked the markets. It's what happens. Brent crude futures up more than 6%, trading around $97 a barrel Monday morning after the semi-official news agency in Iran, Tasnim, reported that the country was suspending all negotiations with the U.S. and Israel after Israel launched some military strikes in Lebanon that Iran says violate the ceasefire agreed to. And Wall Street Journal later on in the day backed that reporting up, said they were able to confirm it as well, that Iran had ceased all negotiation efforts. The president says not interested in more direct military action in Iran. That's proven to be very unpopular for him. And so he says we're not going back in with military efforts to try and force them into releasing their stranglehold on the strait or anything like that. The U.S. is blockading Iran's blockade, so it's like a dual blockades going on there, and it's just a stalemate at this point. So end of day here, starting the day at 6% up, end of day U.S. crude up just over 8%, $99 a barrel, and wholesale gas prices will jump between 4 and 8% over the next few weeks because of that. So that's the trend we usually see. But average gas prices across the U.S., like I said, have been down nearly 20 cents on average. I think it was 22 cents here in Utah, according to AAA, at the end of last week, after going up more than $1.50 in the months before that, back down 20 cents. Now it looks like going back up. But national average, and we're always a bit higher here in Utah. During political years especially, many politicians have tried to make that an issue, but we know the answer. It comes down to refining and transportation routes and all kinds of things like that. So we're always between 20, sometimes even 30 cents higher than the national average here in Utah. Parts of Colorado experience this as well. But Utah is the one state, because of our location, basically, so unfair, we just end up paying more. And so national average right now is across the country $4.32, expected to go back up to around $4.80 and roughly 50 cents by the end of the week into next week, and then possibly hold there through the summer into the fall. In Utah, that's going to be about 20 cents higher, so somewhere between $4.40, $4.60, $4.70, even a gallon average through the rest of the summer likely. So it's I was getting excited. They were declining. Gas Buddy, I saw something from Gas Buddy last week, said that they had tracked 15 states where the average price of gas had actually fallen below $4 per gallon the first time since the war in Iran started. And I was getting pretty hopeful. Got some summer plans coming up that involve a lot of driving. But, yeah, it looks like not going to be the case. Deseret News reports today that Exxon Senior Vice President Neil Chapman warned at a conference hosted in New York last week that oil inventory is approaching unheard-of levels. Chapman said, really, really low levels. You can debate whether that's going to hit those really low levels in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, drive prices even higher. Once you get to that point, you'll see prices shoot up. I wouldn't be surprised if we see nearly $6 a gallon gas in some states in the United States before the end of the year. Other oil industry execs have sounded similar alarms. I never know what to make of these. Sometimes they say these things to scare politicians into stopping whatever it is they're doing that's driving prices up. There aren't really many things. I mean, to be honest with you, and I'm not saying this to be mean or even really make a statement, but the president found the one way that a president can actually influence gas prices. It's always bugged me during presidential campaigns. There's all this pressure on who's going to get gas prices down. Well, the president really, this is the only way that a president can influence gas prices, which is external policy, foreign policy, military endeavors that affect the transportation and shipment of oil. That's literally the only thing a president can do to influence gas prices. And President Trump found it. But he says it's worth it. He says it needs to be done. We'll see where this all ends. But again, that news coming after Iran announced negotiations had ceased. And and like I said, again, Utah gas prices still running way ahead of the national average, which again is $4.32 a gallon. I saw $4.75 somewhere in Utah over the weekend. I won't say where because I don't want to call anybody out for maybe gaming the system a bit, but not that high here in Cache Valley yet, thankfully. So if you want a little explainer on the timeline, how all this tracks, I've linked to this on how wholesale oil prices and gallon at the pump prices track each other, the 2-week lag between the two, and why the gas price at the pump remains higher for longer than the wholesale oil prices. It's a really interesting process that plays out, and it all again comes down to refining capacity and transportation, which there's not exactly a shortage of in the U.S. right now. But here in Utah, we kind of eat it a little bit, paying a little higher all the time. So check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. And as promised, here's a much more pleasant story to send you into your evening. This was, I don't know, just cool. It's very, very rare that you see a cool story about pigeons, right? But scientists believe that, so pigeons are known to fly hundreds of miles a day and navigate. We know from previous research that some birds actually navigate with the stars. They don't know what stars are, but they learn the patterns of the stars. And so they learn north from south and east from west that way. And they don't know, or north, south, east, and west, but they know, well, I need to go this way to get home. And that's that way because I can see those stars. I think that's pretty cool, but most birds are out in the daytime, right, when you can't see stars. So how do they get around? Well, scientists in Germany, the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior in Germany, believe they have found a clue, and it all has to do with cells in the liver of pigeons that have a bit more iron in them and actually have a magnetic pull. They believe that this must translate into, literally, for the pigeons, a gut instinct that tells them that way is north. I don't know why I know that, but I feel it. And they're literally feeling it in their livers. Pretty cool stuff. Check it out. I've linked to the Associated Press story on this research on our Facebook page. That's our time for today. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around. Dave Ramsey is next, and tomorrow on the program, we are going to be speaking to county attorney candidates. This is the big race everyone's watching here. So that's tomorrow on For the People. Thanks for tuning in here on KVNU Logan.
The newsmakers, the stories.
This is a situation that is rapidly spinning out of control.
Get it all here. News Talk KVNU Logan, 610